Versailles wasn't just a palace. It was a machine built to make everyone inside it perform happiness, loyalty, and virtue, while hiding poison, blackmail, and secrets the crown would kill to protect. Tonight, 5 of those secrets. A queen's hidden child, covered up for decades. A king's mistress accused of witchcraft and infant sacrifice. A king who legitimized his own scandal. A house built for something no one wanted printed in the history books. And a necklace that helped bring down a monarchy. Let's go back in time and see what happened. November 1664. Queen Marie Therese, the devoutly religious Spanish-born wife of Louis XIV, gives birth to a daughter in front of a room full of witnesses. A deliberate tradition meant to prove beyond doubt that the baby was really hers, with no substitution possible. The witnesses got more than they bargained for. Multiple court memoirists, including the king's own mistress, Madame de Montespan, later described the infant as unusually dark-skinned. The official explanation was medical, a difficult, premature delivery that starved the baby of oxygen. The child was reported dead within weeks. Except the court had a theory it liked better than medical complication. Marie Therese kept a young African page in her household, a man courtiers called Nabo. The rumor spread fast and never really stopped, that the queen, pious, devoted, the least likely adulteress in Europe by reputation, had had an affair, and this was the proof. 20 years later, a Benedictine nun appears at a convent in the town of Moret, roughly 50 miles from Paris. Her name, Louise Marie Thérèse. Her skin, dark. Her claim that she is the queen's daughter, alive after all, hidden away for 2 decades. Court records confirm something remarkable. The royal family visited her, repeatedly. Louis XIV personally granted her a pension for life. And according to the memoirs of the Duke of Saint-Simon, one of the most reliable gossips of Versailles, she once greeted the king's own son, the Dauphin, by calling him "my brother" to his face, in front of witnesses. Voltaire later weighed in with his own theory, that she wasn't the queen's daughter at all, but the king's, born to a black servant in his household and quietly placed in a convent to avoid a scandal that would have been, in its own way, even more explosive than an affair. We'll likely never know which version is true. What we do know from the treasury records themselves is that someone in that family cared enough about her to pay for her silence or her comfort for the rest of her life. 13 years later, a different woman at Louis's court finds herself at the center of an even darker rumor, one involving black masses, arsenic, and the bones of infants. Athénaïs de Montespan was the king's chief mistress for over a decade, mother to 7 of his children, and, by most accounts, the most powerful woman at Versailles who wasn't actually the queen. In 1679, Parisian police investigating a wave of poisonings arrested a fortune teller named Catherine Monvoisin, known to her clients as La Voisin. Under interrogation, La Voisin named names. Dozens of them. Countesses, duchesses, courtiers. But the name that mattered most was Montespan's. According to testimony, Montespan had paid for aphrodisiac potions and participated in black masses, secret rituals performed over her own body, allegedly involving a defrocked priest, and, according to the more sensational accounts, infant sacrifice, all to keep the king's affection from wandering to younger rivals. I have to flag something important here. This testimony came from a woman who was, by multiple accounts, drunk or under duress when she gave it, and no physical evidence ever tied Montespan to an actual crime. Louis ordered the investigation's most damaging records sealed rather than risk the scandal reaching trial. Montespan was never charged, never exiled. She stayed at Versailles for another decade. But 36 other people were executed for their role in the wider poisoning network, including La Voisin herself, burned at the stake in February 1680. The gap between those two outcomes tells you everything about how justice worked at Versailles. It moved freely, right up until it threatened to touch the throne. Montespan may have survived the poison scandal, but she left Louis with a different kind of legacy, one that would nearly tear the monarchy apart, decades after both of them were dead. Louis fathered at least 7 children with Montespan. Under French law, none of them should have had any claim to the throne. Illegitimate children simply didn't. Louis disagreed. Over the course of his reign, he formally legitimized his children with Montespan, granting them royal titles, land, and, most controversially, a place in the official line of succession, positioned just behind the legitimate princes of the blood. His favorite among them, the Duke of Maine, was even granted the right to inherit the crown itself if every legitimate Bourbon line died out, an almost unthinkable elevation for a child born outside marriage. Louis spent years maneuvering to protect that position, going so far as editing his own will to reinforce it before his death in 1715. It nearly worked exactly as badly as you'd expect. After Louis died, the legitimate princes of the blood fought to have the Duke of Maine's succession rights stripped, and largely succeeded. But the legal chaos it created lingered in French court politics for years. Louis had spent his life building Versailles into a symbol of absolute, unquestionable royal control. His own family scandal proved that even he couldn't fully control what happened after he was gone. 2 reigns later, under Louis XV, Versailles' secrets took a different, more troubling shape. One hidden not behind sealed court documents, but behind the walls of an ordinary-looking house in the town just outside the palace gates. It was called the Parc aux Cerfs, the Deer Park. And it was organized, historians largely agree, with the involvement of the king's official mistress, Madame de Pompadour. Its purpose, housing young women for the king's private use, arrangements made discreetly enough that many of them reportedly never knew who their benefactor actually was. I want to be careful with this one because its reputation grew significantly after the fact. Revolutionary pamphleteers looking for ammunition against the monarchy a generation later inflated the Parc aux Cerfs into a myth involving hundreds of girls and industrial-scale exploitation. Modern historians who've gone back through the actual household records find a smaller, still deeply troubling operation, but nowhere near the scale the revolutionary version claimed. What the records do confirm is uncomfortable enough on its own. A system, run with royal knowledge and mistress-level logistics, built around the king's access to very young women, some of them reportedly in their early teens by the standards of the time. It's a genuinely dark chapter, and unlike some of Versailles' more theatrical scandals, this one doesn't have an innocent explanation waiting at the end of it. Our final scandal doesn't involve a king's mistress at all. It involves a queen who did nothing wrong and paid for it anyway. Cardinal Louis de Rohan wanted desperately to regain favor with Marie Antoinette, who despised him. In 1784, a con artist named Jeanne de la Motte convinced Rohan that the Queen secretly wanted his help acquiring an extraordinarily expensive diamond necklace, and that she'd be corresponding with him directly in secret to arrange it. The letters were forged. The woman Rohan met one night in the gardens of Versailles, believing her to be the queen offering silent thanks, was a prostitute hired to resemble her in the dark for a few minutes. Rohan, fully convinced, arranged the necklace's purchase on credit, believing the crown would repay him. De la Motte's network stole the jewels and had them broken apart and sold across Europe within weeks. Marie Antoinette had no idea any of this was happening. When the unpaid jewelers eventually went to the crown for payment, the entire scheme unraveled publicly. And despite being the victim, not the perpetrator, the Queen's reputation was the one that never recovered. The public, already primed by years of rumors about her spending, decided she must have been involved somehow. The scandal became shorthand for royal excess and corruption just 4 years before the revolution began. Historians widely consider this affair one of the events that measurably damaged the monarchy's public standing in its final years. Not because the Queen did something wrong, but because the story was too good, too scandalous, and too easy to believe. 4 scandals, 4 different monarchs, and one pattern that connects all of them. Versailles was never actually the fortress of control it presented itself as. Secrets got out, reputations got destroyed, sometimes fairly, often not. And by the time we reach Marie Antoinette standing at the center of a scandal she had nothing to do with, you can already see the walls starting to crack. Years before the revolution actually arrives to finish the job. Tell me which one surprised you most in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. See you next time.